how it feels at the top. Got no incentive to stop. Payment is only the rock. So I take water and soda, then hit them with lyrics and mix them up all in the pot. While in the jungle, they want me tame. Keep them alive but without a brain. They want me broke with a lot of fame. Smiling but he in a lot of pain. Till he tap out like a lot of names. You gotta give me what's owed. Taking control. No, this is not a game. No.
It's time now for another edition of Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, joined as always by the head coach, Mike Brey. Coach, you're coming off a weekend where you got a split. Really close game at Virginia Tech, and then you got the win against Howard in D.C. I'm just curious from your standpoint, how do the games go for you on the floor?
Well, a hard-fought physical battle at Virginia Tech. Very proud of our group. We gave ourselves every chance to win, but just couldn't finish down the stretch. And I think you have to give credit to Virginia Tech and their home crowd. You bust to D.C. and you get your energy back, and then you have an amazing atmosphere to be on an HBCU campus on MLK Day at Howard University. And we are thrilled that we escaped with the win, Tony.
I wanted to ask we'll talk about the game in depth and how you guys did get out of there with a win, but you mentioned the environment, you mentioned the symbolism. We've talked about it really for the last month or so, how much you were anticipating being there. Did it live up to the expectations, and what was your takeaway from the experience?
Even more powerful than I thought. The educational experience for our student athletes to be representing themselves and Notre Dame on that day, on that campus. The responses that I've gotten from people in college basketball and around the country and our university leadership, just extremely powerful to be there. And it was a tough atmosphere, as you and I both know. The Howard crowd was there. The Howard team played great. I had every notion that we were going to have to escape. We weren't going to win easy there that day. So I'm thrilled we got the win, but the overall experience will last a lifetime, I think, for our young men.
Coach, appreciate it. When we come back, we'll break down both Virginia Tech and Howard on this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. Welcome back to Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's game breakdown. We're going to talk first, Coach, about Virginia Tech. You guys were riding a 6-game winning streak, playing some really good basketball when you went into Blacksburg. What was your mindset going into that game? Of course, a really tough environment, but a place you guys have had some success before in the past.
Well, we knew we had a desperate team on our hands because they were searching for a league win, and they're a really good team, you know. I loved how we got off to a good start, and we were in a very good offensive flow. I thought we were getting Paul Atkinson touches and playing off of him in the first half, and you figure you're in a pretty good rhythm, but I think you know that their physical defense is coming at you, and they have two frontline guys that are very hard to handle one-on-one, and they kind of got to us then eventually.
In the first half, you were talking about the success you had. You had a 40-32 lead at halftime. I thought the offense was working really well, maybe as well as it has in a first half this year. Your second halves have been a little bit better. You mentioned Paul, Dane Goodwin was working for you. What did you like from that first half offensively?
Yeah, I think we just shared it and moved it and were able to move their defense around. Again, anytime I see 37, 38, 39, or 40 on the board at halftime, we feel like, hey, we're in a pretty good offensive rhythm. But it was kind of by committee. We were patient. I thought our shot selection was good. That's always going to be key for us. Sometimes our shot selection can get a little shaky. If we stay in character with shot selection, that always helps us.
So Virginia Tech came out, they gave you a good punch in the second half. You probably knew it was coming, had to call some timeouts. What was your message as that game got a lot closer down the stretch in the second?
You know, you're talking to your guys down the stretch like, you know, we weren't going to win this by 15, fellas. They're coming. Now, we have held people off before, and we have been in game situations, maybe more than any other team in the ACC. So you're trying to tell your guys, we're going to have our opportunities, we're going to have our chances, and we did. You know, we missed a couple free throws, which is uncharacteristic for us because we're leading, I think, the league still in free throw percentage. But they're big guys, one-on-one in the post, were hard to handle. We were afraid to overhelp because they could make threes, but they almost did both to us the last 5 minutes.
You mentioned that. I was going to ask. They shot 70% in the second half, and you guys have been really good defensively this year. I talked to Coach Solomon after the game. Part of this, did you have to just kind of tip your cap to Virginia Tech? You mentioned they were desperate, and they just came out and really executed in the second half against you guys.
I thought, like, our home atmospheres have helped us and generated us to believe their home atmosphere really did, their student section, and their defense. It started with their defense. We had a hard time scoring. We weren't in anywhere near the offensive rhythm we were in the first half. And then they got going a little bit, and then they made some big shots. And you know, it's one of those where we had our chances, but you're going to have to probably steal it against a very gifted team who was desperate.
We're going to talk about it a little bit later in Irish Intel, but one thing that really impressed me, you had the 8-point lead, and then they came in through their punch, and you guys were down 6 with about 3 minutes left. You called the timeout. I thought you guys had 3 great possessions, 2 offensively and 1 defensively that got you right back in the game. I thought it still said a lot about this team, their fight late. They could have packed it in, and they didn't.
We've weathered some tough stuff, and I figured we'd have a chance, and we really did. I love our group in that we can take a punch in the under 8-minute timeout, and we figure out how to come back and make it game situation.
Last thing I wanted to ask about the team's mentality. You mentioned some missed free throws late that was uncharacteristic. It's a great free throw shooting team, but I thought that their willingness to go to the line and draw the contact told me a lot. They were not shying away from those opportunities. Is that how you saw it as well?
Yeah, I thought we had to drive it. We really were having a hard time making passes, and then you just have to physically drive it. And we drew fouls, we got to the line, we just missed a couple. And, you know, we made all of those against Howard 2 days later.
All right, we'll get a chance to talk about Howard after this when we come back on this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. Welcome back to Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. It's time now to break down the Howard game, Coach. We were talking about it for really the entire season. It was such a game that was circled on the calendar. I want to know, you were in the locker room beforehand. We talked before this game. What was the message to the team before what was obviously a really unique opportunity?
You know, I talked to them a little bit about the Father Hesburgh, Civil Rights Commission, Martin Luther King connection, taking the Civil Rights Commission to Land O'Lakes, our property up in Wisconsin, and getting the 3 Southerners and 3 Northerners on the Civil Rights Commission in fishing boats and taking them out of the lake and getting them to fish and break the ice and talk. I told our guys that story. I think our guys were touched by the whole experience. We spent some time at the memorial. We had a great picture there. It was snowing, but we had a great picture at the memorial. I think it was a touching experience for our players, and I know that because the parents of my players all texted me how powerful it was.
It was a great environment. I'm curious from your standpoint, because it is unique, right? The PA guy was working a different way. The crowd is just a different energy. Being on the sidelines, you guys wore those awesome shooting shirts too. I mean, it just feels like the kind of environment you guys will never forget being in.
You know, we had a street ball announcer. He was rocking. We got one of the best, and you know, no band or cheerleaders moves more athletically than the Howard cheerleaders and band. And you know, the place was full. We had a great, DC's been a good town for us, but we don't play Georgetown or Maryland anymore. So our DC fan base was there, and I certainly appreciate that, but it was rocking. And we knew we were going to have to escape, and the Howard team played to the energy in the building, and we held them off.
I was going to say, once the game got started, it did seem like it was tricky to kind of flip the switch and get to basketball. And of course, Howard's playing this game that is so high profile for them. They're rarely on that stage. You got their best punch, and I thought it was a real testament to them that they never really let you guys pull away from them at any point.
They didn't. You know, we go down 5 in the second half, call timeout, and again, the character that this group has shown, they've come out of tough situations, and we go on a heck of a run, and we get it to 12, but you're not going to escape. And I never thought we were, and here they come, and can you hold them off? And we made enough plays, even though we turned it over, had some bad turnovers against the press. That gym, because it was small, it felt like the court was small, and we couldn't get the ball across half court like you were playing against 6 guys. But we made enough plays to escape, and it was an amazing national story. The outreach I've got from coaches in the profession, thanks for doing that for college basketball. You know, it was powerful.
Yeah, okay, so now let's talk second half. You mentioned coming out of the timeout. You guys were down 5, you had to use a timeout. It was Nate Leshesky who got you the couple baskets out of the timeout, really performed well for you all night long. What did you like from Nate in this game?
Well, you know, we ended up playing one big guy. I think because they were small and they were hard to guard and they were spreading us out and driving us. We got Paul out. Not that he was playing bad. It was, let's ride one big guy. And when Nate started to respond like that and kind of we played off of him, him. We rode him the rest of the half, and I thought he just made big buckets and played like a senior in a tough situation, saying, I'm going to will my group to get out of here with a win today. I thought Dane Goodwin did that too, and even Prentiss, even though he had some turnovers, when it was crunch time, he made the layup to get us up 3 and escape. So our old guys, Cormac, big free throws. He comes back and makes 2 after missing 2 at Virginia Tech. So our old guys, kind of rallied, but Nate was fabulous.
You led me to it there a little bit. I just wanted to ask about Prentiss because, again, the game, it was hanging in the balance there. It's a 1-point game late. He's had so many great plays this year. Of course, Pitt comes to mind first, but he took the big shot again against Howard. It seems like when the game's on the line, you're going to ride number 3.
He is unafraid. And the one thing, that I've learned about him, he could have 3 bad plays leading up to the game-winning play, and he still thinks he's going to make the game-winning play. His will to win is contagious with the rest of our group, and having him back in that mindset, which we didn't have early in the season, is very important for us the rest of the way.
Last one for me is just, obviously you get the win, and you obviously needed that, a 3-point win, but there's a part of me that thinks the fact this game came down to the wire makes it that much more memorable. It seems like the kind of game this group will talk about for the rest of their lives.
It almost helped the broadcast that it was drama.
Yeah.
It was a great story off the court, and then Fox, they're doing their post-game, their pre-game, national, everyone's watching. It had to go to the buzzer. It was almost in the cards. Now, I was thoroughly exhausted and limped to the bus after the game, but I kept checking the score, making sure we won, and then ran out of the gym.
Thanks, Coach. When we come back, we'll have more on this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. Welcome back to Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for Irish Intel when we go inside the play. Coach, this is a baseline inbound set against Virginia Tech. I think really you guys this year have been outstanding on these. Talk me through the options here, what results in a Dane Goodwin 3.
You're right, Tony. We have scored on out-of-bounds under a bunch, but we come back to Dane Goodwin for a single-double screening action. Really good screen by Cormac Ryan. We execute, we get a bucket for Dane, and we have been really good out of bounds under, very efficient at finding ways to score.
On this set, what I'm curious about too, you'll see when Trey sends it up top, Dane can come off this double to the right. Is that because they have to respect this, that he can then go the opposite way and flare?
Exactly. He's going to have a stagger, and we want, if you watch, we want Trey to be the first screener so the big guy may have to help off if he uses it the other way. Dane read it great, and Cormac set a very unselfish screen, and we delivered the ball for a big bucket.
All right, Coach, this is late in the game against Virginia Tech. You called the timeout, you're down 6. I thought the way your team responded here was fantastic. You get a great ATO and then a great stop as well.
Really proud of our group because we're on the ropes. We come back and we want to post Paul on us out of bounds. We go to him, he's one-on-one, and when he's one-on-one, we want him to look to score. And so we cut that thing to 4, we come out, we did what we wanted to do. Then we go zone, and we do a great job in the zone of kind of getting a deflection, and we're in this thing, and it was really a good 2 possessions in a row, to kind of get things going. Blake gets in here on a probe. Again, there's plenty of time. There's no panic. Ball screened by Paul. He rolls. Prentiss with a drive, and then this is a pretty good finish by Nate Leshevsky, and now you're in a 1-possession game with plenty of time. I just loved our poise coming out of that timeout down 6 to go right back into game situations.
All right, Coach, this is late in the game against Howard. You guys lead by just 1. There's a 4.6-second shot clock differential, so Howard's going to press. I was curious to see if they're going to foul. You knew they were going to trap. You'd struggled with the press a couple times. Tell me how you guys broke this and ultimately got the basket.
Well, this is the possession because we had turned it over and we weren't very confident, but Prentiss is good here. Trey in the game was a key. He was really good with the ball. Cormac's a receiver. We handle it here. We reverse it. We move it. And Hubb is feeling time and score right here. He's kind of feeling time and score a little bit, and he knows eventually he's going to have to go. And we have him spread, and that is just a big play by a senior. Now, we got to get back and defend on this last possession, and we do a good job of forcing a tough shot.
Let me ask you this here. I see you holding your hands out, and Prentiss goes, it looks like about, I think, 13 seconds on the shot clock. I actually thought this was almost really smart because sometimes I think teams wait too long. Yeah. They get too deep in the clock and you don't get a good look. It seemed like Howard maybe thought, oh, he's going to wait 5 more seconds. He kind of caught them flat-footed, didn't he?
I think he did, and Prentiss really has a feel for this. He's been in these situations. That's a senior. They're worried about our shooters in Nate and Cormac, and he just makes, that's a winning play like he did at Pittsburgh. And you know, right before that, he had 2 or 3 turnovers, and he shrugged them off and was mentally tough and figured out how to get a layup and at least give us a 3-point lead right there. That's your senior guard delivering when it's crunch time.
Thanks, Coach. When we come back, we'll have this week's edition of Irishography on Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. So, Prentiss, you guys have been playing really well over the last month and a half, really since the Kentucky game. Just from your standpoint, what's been working well for you guys?
I think we've just been trusting in one another a little bit more. We got a lot of guys getting in the gym, just honing in their skills, and I think that whenever we get in the gym like that, you grow that confidence in one another.
You know, you had your 500th assist in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech. To get the 500 assists is a huge accomplishment. You're now top 10 in the history of this program. What comes to mind when you think of those assists? How much did that mean to you to get to that platform?
Yeah, I didn't even really know that was gonna happen like at that time. I just got on social media after the game and seen 500 assists. But it really shows how much work I put in and all the work that I can do.
You guys are coming off this game against Howard, and everyone I've talked to that was involved in it, I thought, said it was just an amazing experience. What did it mean for you? Obviously, it's a place that was close to your hometown, but of course, to play in HBCU on Martin Luther King Day, what was the experience like for you?
It was a great experience being able to get back to go home and play in front of my family and stuff. I don't really get to do that too often. And just being able to play on Martin Luther King Day, because Notre Dame is typically a private school, and we don't really get to play HBCUs that often, especially on a special day like that. So just going there and playing them in their home gym is really good.
Talk to me more about Coach Brey. What's it been like to play for him? What have you learned from him? What's the experience been like the last 4 years?
It's been a really fun ride. It has its ups and downs, but I think that he's a really good coach, and I think that me putting my trust in him when I was a 17, 18-year-old kid was a great decision I made because he helped me grow, not just on the basketball court, but in life too.
You know, the last one I have for you is as you look to the rest of the season, now it's kind of a sprint down the ACC. What's going to be the biggest key for you guys to keep this thing going and get deep into the postseason?
I think we just gotta stay locked in and execute our game plan. I think that at times we can get a little bit lackadaisical, and I think that if we can remain solid and just and play to our best ability, I think that we can go pretty far.
Prentiss, appreciate the time. Thanks.
No problem.
When we come back, we'll look ahead at next week's games on this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time to wrap up this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. Coach, you've had a couple days now to rest. You got the break between Howard and Louisville coming up on the road, but now comes a really tough stretch. You're going on the road to the Yum Center, then you get 3 in a short period at home. Seems like a pivotal point in the season here at the end of January. What's the mindset? How do you get ready?
Well, it's a great opportunity to make a move. This team has taken advantage of situations. I talk about them making a move in the league. And we're going to scale it to a 3-day window, through Saturday. And then we're going to look at, more of the window through NC State. But it's coming at us fast. Playing on the road in the Yum Center is always tough. And they're athletic and are going to really guard us. And we're going to have to rebound the basketball. But to come back to our building for a couple with our fan base and how our student section is rocking, I'm looking forward to that too.
Looking forward to it as well. That does it for this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com.